Everyone knows Edward I crushed Scotland, the hammer of the Scots, stone of Scone taken, William Wallace hanged, drawn, quartered. But 1314, June 23rd and 24th, a swamp 2 miles south of Stirling Castle changes everything. 7,000 Scots, 20,000 English, cavalry in full plate, archers who won wars across France, supply train 20 miles long. And somehow, by 9 in the morning on the second day, the English king is fleeing for his life and the ground is piled with knights. The moment infantry beats cavalry and stays beating it for 600 years. Dalry, same year, routed again. He's hiding in the Highlands. His wife Elizabeth locked in an English cage hung from Berwick castle walls for 4 years. His sister Mary in a cage at Roxburgh. His daughter Marjorie, 12 years old, same treatment. His brother Neil captured, hanged, beheaded. 2 more brothers, Thomas and Alexander, executed. This isn't war, it's extermination. His son, Edward II, is not his father. Weak king, obsessed with his favorite Piers Gaveston. Barons hate him. Scotland is a distraction. Bruce starts winning, castle by castle, trick and night raids. Douglas takes Roxburgh 1314 by hiding his men under cowhides and crawling up to the walls after dark. Edward Bruce, Robert's brother, takes Edinburgh same year with 30 men and ladders. They scale the north cliff in the dark. No siege engines, just climbing. By spring 1314, only 2 major English-held castles remain in Scotland. Berwick on the border, Stirling in the middle. Edward Bruce takes it. Handshake agreement. King Robert is furious. This deal just forced a pitched battle. Everything Bruce has done for 8 years is guerrilla war. Avoid the English army. Hit and vanish. Now his brother has made retreat impossible. If Edward II doesn't march north, he loses Stirling and looks weak. If Bruce doesn't show up, he loses Stirling and his kingship is a joke. Both kings have no choice. Battle is locked in. Edward II summons the army. End of 1313. Documents say 2,000 heavy cavalry, 13,000 infantry. Welsh archers. Some sources say 15,000 total. Some say 20,000. What matters is this. It's the largest English army ever sent into Scotland. Bigger than anything his father led. Musters at Berwick, 10th of June, 1314. But key nobles refuse. Thomas Earl of Lancaster, the most powerful baron in England, stays home. Earl of Warwick, same. Earl of Warenne, Earl of Arundel, all refuse. They hate Edward II. They don't trust him. So the army that marches is huge, but split. Tensions everywhere. The Earl of Gloucester, Gilbert de Clare, 23 years old, commands the vanguard with Humphrey de Bohun, Earl of Hereford. Both think it's their right to lead, already arguing. Supply line stretches back to Berwick, 70 miles in 1 week. Exhausted horses, hungry men. His brother, Edward Bruce, commands another. His nephew Thomas, Randolph, Earl of Moray, takes the third. James Douglas and young Walter the Steward share the fourth. 500 light horse under Robert Keith held in reserve. That's it. No heavy cavalry. No plate armor charges, just spears. To the east of the old Roman road lies the Carse, low wet marshland cut by streams, the Bannockburn and the Pell Stream. Bruce positions his men in the forest edge, trees on his right flank. Bannockburn Gorge protects his left. 1 road in. And along that road and across the open ground in front, his men dig pits, small holes, knee-deep, a few feet across, hundreds of them, covered with branches and turf. One chronicler says they also scatter caltrops, 4-pointed iron spikes that always land with 1 point up. Horse steps on it, leg breaks, rider goes down. The ground is a trap. William Wallace used schiltrons at Falkirk 13 years earlier, but only defensively, standing still. English archers shot them apart. Bruce trains his men to advance, slow, tight, disciplined, offensive schiltrons. No one's tried this. Infantry walking into cavalry is suicide unless the ground is wrong for horses and the pikes hold formation. Bruce is betting everything that his men can do it. If you value documented medieval tactics and primary source history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Vita Edwardi Secundi, a near-contemporary chronicle written within 3 years of the battle and the continuation of Nicholas Trevet, a West Country chronicle from 1307 to 1318, that names 80 casualties and captives by name, including their ranks and where they fell. These aren't later embellishments. These are records written when people who fought at Bannockburn were still alive. Now back to the information. Sir Philip Mowbray rides out from Stirling Castle with his garrison, slips through the bog paths along the Forth, crosses the burn, and finds Edward II. He warns the king, the Scots are in force, the ground is terrible. You've technically arrived within 3 leagues of the castle by the deadline. You can claim relief and withdraw. Edward ignores him. His younger knights want glory. Gloucester is stung by any hint of caution. The vanguard moves toward the ford. 1 charge, 1 kill, the war ends. Glory forever. De Bohun lowers his lance and spurs his horse. Bruce stands in his stirrups, swings the axe down with both hands, and splits de Bohun's helmet and skull into his brain. De Bohun drops. dead. His horse bolts. The axe haft is broken. First blood to Scotland. Bruce calls out, "A rose has fallen from your chaplet, Randolph," meaning you failed. Randolph sprints his schiltron down the slope to block them. Circular formation, spears out, the English cavalry charge. They can't break it. The spear hedge is too dense. Clifford's men throw swords and maces in desperation. James Douglas moves up with his schiltron to support. The English break, half flee to Stirling Castle, half retreat to the main army. Sir Thomas Grey captured, William d'Eyncourt killed. The crossing is a nightmare. It's late. The burn is steep-sided in places. The Carse is marshy, streams everywhere. The chronicler Scala says they went into an evil, deep, wet marsh. Barber, writing 50 years later, says there were pools and streams. The army slogs across in the dark, exhausted, and camps on low, wet ground. Stirling Castle is visible to the north. The Scots are on the high ground to the southwest. The English are crammed into a narrow space. Bannockburn on one side, Pellstream on the other. No room to maneuver. Morale is low. They've marched 70 miles in a week. They lost to skirmishes. They're wet and tired. Bruce calls his commanders. They debate. The king has been planning to withdraw if the English army looked too strong. Preserve the force, keep the guerrilla war going. But Seaton's intelligence changes it. The English are vulnerable. Bruce decides. Attack at dawn, use the schiltrons offensively, walk them into the English lines. The Scots emerge from the New Park Forest and start advancing downhill toward the Carse. The English can't believe it. Pikemen on foot, walking toward the largest army England has ever sent north. Edward II supposedly says they pray for mercy. An attendant, maybe Robert de Umfreville, replies, "For mercy, yes, but from God, not you. These men will conquer or die." The abbot of Incheffray, Maurice, is moving among them with the relics of St. Fillan and St. Columba. He blesses them, mass in the field. Then they stand and keep advancing. 4 schiltrons in line, tight formations, spears bristling. They're moving slow, keeping formation. He's been accused of cowardice by the king for suggesting they wait a day to rest. He's furious. He charges early. Few follow him. His men hit Edward Bruce's schiltron head-on with a terrible crash. The impact kills knights instantly. Gloucester is swarmed, unhorsed, and killed. The Vita Edwardi Secundi, written within 3 years of the battle, says his own men failed to rescue him. Sir Edmund de Mauley, steward of Edward's household, killed. Sir John Comyn, killed. Sir Payne de Tiptoft, killed. Sir Robert de Clifford, the veteran of the previous day's fight, killed. These are not foot soldiers. These are high-ranking knights in full armor dying in the first charge. The Lanercost Chronicle says the English columns were jammed together and could not operate. Sir Thomas Grey, son of the captured knight from the day before, writes the same thing. The English in the rear could not reach the Scots because the leading division was in the way. The English cavalry can't charge because they're packed too tight. The archers try to deploy. Welsh longbowmen on the right flank start shooting. They hit some Scots. But Robert Keith, commanding the 500 Scottish light horse, sees it. He charges the archers from the flank. The archers have no pikes, no armor. They scatter. The arrow threat is gone. Randolph's and Douglas's schiltrons come up on the flanks. The English line is getting compressed. Horses are panicking. Men are falling into the Bannockburn, the Pellstream, the marsh. The ground is carnage. Knights in full plate armor are drowning in water 2 feet deep because they can't stand up. The weight of the armor, 60 pounds or more, pins them down. Foot soldiers are being trampled by their own cavalry trying to escape. The chroniclers say it's chaos. The Lanercost Chronicle, written by a Franciscan friar in Carlisle shortly after the battle, describes English soldiers jammed so tightly they couldn't lift their weapons. The cry goes up among the Scots. On them! On them! They fail. They're on the ridge behind the battlefield watching. Someone, maybe one of Bruce's commanders, gives them an order. They grab sheets and blankets from the camp. They start waving them and shouting and moving forward like they're another army. From the English position, packed tight in the Carse, exhausted, it looks like Scottish reinforcements. Thousands more enemies. Panic spreads. The English army breaks, not a retreat, a rout. Thousands try to flee north towards Stirling Castle. They run straight into the rocky outcrops below the castle. Bruce has to send men to contain them. They're trapped. No way in, Scots behind them. They surrender later in the day. Others run east toward the Forth. The river loops near Stirling. There's tidal marsh between the Carse and the water. Les Poles, they call it. Bogs, streams, quicksand. English soldiers in armor wade into it trying to escape. They sink, they drown. Camp followers with knives follow them in, finishing the wounded, stripping bodies. It's slaughter. The Vita Edwardi Secundi says many drown trying to cross the burn, weighed down by armor. The burn runs red. He's humiliated, furious, desperate. They force him towards Stirling, but the route to the castle is cut off. Scots are everywhere. They swing south, then east, riding hard. The chroniclers say Edward's horse is killed under him. He has to mount another. His shield-bearer, Sir Roger Northburg, is captured trying to protect the king. Edward himself is nearly pulled from his horse. Scots grab at his caparison, the decorated cloth covering the horse. Edward strikes them down with his mace. He's fighting for his life. They ride east along the edge of the Carse, through the chaos, and keep going. The pursuit is relentless, but the Scots can't catch mounted men on good horses who have a head start. The largest army England ever sent to Scotland is destroyed, and he ran from the field. Dunbar gives him a ship. Edward sails from the harbor to Berwick. He doesn't set foot in Scotland again for years. The humiliation is total. A king fleeing by sea. Early and survived. Sir Maurice Berkeley escapes with a great rout of Welshmen, maybe 500 men who break away before the collapse and run south. The Earl of Hereford flees toward Carlisle with 600 mounted men and 1,000 foot. He makes it to Bothwell Castle on the Clyde, 30 miles southwest, still English held. The Castellan, Walter Gilbertson, a Scot serving England, lets him in with 50 men, and Gilbertson changes sides. He opens the gates to Edward Bruce's force tracking Hereford, hands over the Earl of Angus, and a hall of barons and knights. Hereford walked into a trap, thinking he'd found sanctuary. He won't be remembered as a man who fled. The Scots kill him. They find his body later. He's buried with honors. Even enemies respect courage like that. Then 27 barons and bannerets dead, 18 of whom also appear in the annals of London. Then 22 earls, barons, and bannerets captured. Then 31 ordinary knights captured. Total named 154 high-ranking men. And that's just the nobility. John Barber, writing in the 1360s in the Bruce, says 200 pairs of red spurs were taken from dead knights. That's 400 knights. Lower estimates say 34 barons and knights killed. Higher estimates say 700 knights dead. Foot soldiers? Thousands. Some sources say 11,000 English dead total, but that's inflated. Conservative modern estimates, 4,000 to 7,000 English casualties, including killed, captured, and drowned. Only about 3,000 English foot soldiers made it back to England, 90 miles to the border. The entire Scottish army chasing them. Robert Neville, the Peacock of the North, captured. His ransom is 2,000 marks. A mark is 2/3 of a pound sterling. Alexander and John Neville also captured. The Neville family is desperate for ransom money. Sir Walter Fauconberg's eldest son is dead, his younger son captured, ransomed for 500 marks. In November 1314, Edward II commands the Exchequer to pay Elaine de Wallingford £100 to ransom. His son from the Scots. The schiltron itself is worth understanding because it changes warfare. It's not a new invention. The Flemish used pike squares at Courtray 1302. The Scots used them at Falkirk 1398, but Bruce perfects it. At Falkirk, Wallace's schiltrons were circular, static, defensive. They held off English cavalry until the archers shot them to pieces. Bruce makes them rectangular or square and trains them to advance. That requires discipline. A circular formation protects itself from all sides but can't move well. A rectangular formation is vulnerable on the flanks but can march forward in line. Bruce's innovation is flank protection through terrain and coordination. At Bannockburn, the schiltrons advance with forest on one side, marsh on the other, or with other schiltrons covering their flanks. The English can't get around them. A horse charging into this hits a wall of steel points at multiple heights. If the horse stops, it's blocking the horses behind it. If it tries to jump, the rider is exposed. If it tries to wheel away, it crashes into the horses beside it. The formation is a killing box, and if the pikemen advance, they're pushing a moving fence that can't be outflanked if the ground is tight. You can't make a schiltron work without drill. The men have to keep spacing. If gaps open, cavalry gets through. If someone panics and runs, the formation breaks. Bruce uses the guerrilla years, 1307 to 1314, to train. Every castle siege, every skirmish, every raid is practice. He's building not just an army, but a professional force. Medieval armies are usually feudal levies, men who show up when called, fight a battle, and go home. Bruce can't do that. He's fighting a long war. His men are veterans. By 1314, they've been fighting for years. They trust each other. They trust Bruce. That's why they hold when the English cavalry hits them. War horses bred for size and aggression, some standing 16 hands or more, over 1,000 pounds. A charging knight with lance leveled has the kinetic energy of a modern car, hitting at 20 miles per hour. The impact is devastating. Against unarmored infantry in the open, cavalry wins. But at Bannockburn, the cavalry can't charge properly. The ground is wrong. The Carse is soft. Horses sink. The pits and caltrops break their legs. The narrow front between the Bannockburn and the Pell Stream means they can't spread out. They have to come straight in. And straight into a schiltron is suicide. They should shred the Scots, but they don't get the chance. Robert Keith's 500 light horse charge them from the flank. The archers have no pikes, no heavy armor. They run, and that's the key. Bruce doesn't just counter the cavalry. He neutralizes the archers. Without archers, the schiltrons are safe. The cavalry alone can't break them. Maybe 20,000 men, supply train 20 miles long. They've marched from Berwick in 10 days. They're exhausted, but they're still the biggest army England has ever sent to Scotland. When they see the Scots advancing, 7,000 men walking toward them, they should be confident. But they're not. They've been repulsed twice on the first day. They've spent the night in a marsh. Morale is low. And when the Schiltrons hit them and hold, panic spreads fast. Medieval battles often turn on morale. One side breaks and runs. Once that starts, it's unstoppable. At Bannockburn, the English break early, and when they break, the terrain kills them. The Carsay doesn't let them retreat in order. They scatter, they drown, they get cut down by camp followers. A king running from the battlefield is humiliating. Compare that to Robert the Bruce on the first day, riding out in front of his lines, killing a charging knight in single combat, and then calmly returning to his men. Leadership. The contrast is stark. Edward's nobles see it. His barons see it. His own son will see it when he's old enough. Bannockburn proves Edward is weak. It's not just a military defeat. It's a political and personal failure that defines his reign. Every baron, every banneret, every knight captured has a price. Families pay, the English crown pays, the money flows north. Bruce uses it to buy supplies, pay troops, and rebuild. Scotland's economy is wrecked by years of war. The ransom money helps stabilize it. He can exchange them for Scottish prisoners. It's a currency, and Bruce is smart about it. He doesn't just grab cash. He uses prisoners to reshape the political landscape. When he releases the Bishop of Glasgow, it strengthens the Scottish Church's support for him. When he releases nobles sympathetic to Scotland, it weakens England's position in the border regions. Every release is calculated. He keeps vigil over the corpse the night after the battle. Gloucester and Clifford's bodies are returned to Berwick in wine casks for preservation. Burial at Tewkesbury Abbey for Gloucester. The other English nobles get honorable burials. The rest of the army goes into mass graves, large pits, dirt. Robert's wife Elizabeth de Burgh, held in a cage for 8 years, freed. His sister Christina, freed. His sister Mary, freed. His daughter Marjorie, freed. Robert Wishart, Bishop of Glasgow, imprisoned since 1306, freed. These exchanges take months. The Earl of Lancaster, who refused to fight, dominates it. Edward's humiliation is total. Scotland is untouchable. Bruce starts raiding northern England at will. 1315, Scots invade Ireland to open a second front. Edward Bruce is crowned High King of Ireland 1316. It fails eventually. Edward Bruce is killed 1318, but the chaos spreads. In November 1314, at Cambus Kenneth Abbey, King Robert declares forfeit the Scottish lands of every earl, baron, and knight who was absent from Bannockburn and still owes fealty to England. Redistribution. Loyalists get rewarded. Sir Gilbert Hay of Errol gets the office of Hereditary Lord High Constable of Scotland. Lands change hands. The Scottish kingdom solidifies. Bannockburn proves infantry can beat cavalry if the ground is right and the formation holds. 4 years earlier, 1310, Flemish pikemen beat French knights at Courtrai. Same principle. But Bannockburn is bigger, more decisive, more famous. 32 years later, 1346, English longbowmen and dismounted knights crush French cavalry at Crécy. 41 years later, 1355, Poitiers, same result. 71 years later, 1385, Portuguese infantry with English help beat Castilian cavalry at Aljubarrota. 91 years later, 1415, Agincourt, the final proof. Cavalry's dominance is over. Infantry and missile troops with terrain win. Bannockburn starts it. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual using David Cornell's Bannockburn, The Triumph of Robert the Bruce, published 2011, which lists 47 knights and nobles killed with their names, titles, and circumstances, and the Scala Chronica by Sir Thomas Grey, son of the knight captured on day one, written mid-1300s, and containing eyewitness testimony from his father, who was there. These are not legends. These are documented deaths with names and grave sites. Now back to the information. He writes the Declaration of Arbroath in 1320, sent to Pope John XXII. It's one of the most famous documents in Scottish history, signed by 8 earls and 31 barons. It argues for Scotland's right to self-determination. It says, roughly translated, "We fight not for glory or riches or honors, but for freedom alone, which no good man gives up except with his life." The Pope doesn't formally recognize Scotland, but he stops supporting England's claim. It shifts the diplomatic ground. 1322, Edward defeats the Earl of Lancaster at the Battle of Boroughbridge. Lancaster is executed, but it doesn't stabilize Edward. 1326, his wife Isabella and Roger Mortimer invade England from France. 1327, Edward is deposed, imprisoned, murdered at Berkeley Castle, September 1327, allegedly with a red-hot poker. His son, Edward III, takes the throne. He's 14. Isabella and Mortimer run the government. All English claims to overlordship are renounced. The Stone of Scone is supposed to be returned, but it never is. Bruce's son David is betrothed to Edward III's sister Joan. The alliance is sealed in 1316, but the Irish lords don't unite. 1318, October 14th, Battle of Faughart. Edward Bruce is killed. His head is sent to England. The campaign collapses. 1327, Edward II is deposed and murdered. His teenage son becomes Edward III. The regency under Queen Isabella and Roger Mortimer admits defeat. 1328, the Treaty of Edinburgh-Northampton. Scotland is free. His heart is removed and carried by Sir James Douglas on crusade. 1330, Douglas dies fighting the Moors at the Battle of Teba in Spain. The heart is brought back and buried at Melrose Abbey. After Bannockburn, Bruce's position in Scotland is unassailable. November 1314, at Cambus-Kenneth Abbey, he declares forfeit the lands of every earl, baron, and knight absent from the battle who still owes fealty to England. The common family is destroyed. The Baliol's are finished. David de Strathbogie, Earl of Athol, loses his earldom. The MacDougals of Argyll lose lands to the MacDonalds. Bruce reshapes Scotland's aristocracy. The economic impact on England is catastrophic. Scottish raids from 1314 to 1328 devastate the north. Berwick loses trade. Durham, Yorkshire, Lancashire are hit repeatedly. Towns pay thousands in protection. One estimate, over £20,000 extracted by the Scots between 1314 and 1327. Hugh Despenser the Younger, who marries one of Gloucester's heiress sisters, becomes the new crisis. He expands power in Wales ruthlessly. 1321, Marcher lords rebel. Edward crushes them. 1322, the Earl of Lancaster revolts. Edward wins at Burbridge, executes Lancaster. But 1325, Edward's wife Isabella goes to France, starts an affair with Roger Mortimer, and 1326, they invade. England. Edward's support collapses. He abdicates January 1327. Imprisoned, dead by September, murdered, maybe with a red-hot poker. Bannockburn started his downfall. The Second War of Scottish Independence begins 1332, when Edward Balliol invades. David flees to France, returns 1341, is captured 1346, ransomed 1357. He dies childless 1371. The Bruce line ends. Robert Burns writes Scots Wha High in 1793. 1414 becomes a rallying date for Scottish identity, even after the union with England in 1707. 1396, 82 years after Bannockburn, a mass grave is discovered near the Carse of Balkitterock. Dozens of bodies, armor fragments, English-style equipment. It's one of the burial pits. 1314, they fill it in and forget about it. 1820, another pit is found during drainage work near the Pell Stream. More bones. 1964, the 650th anniversary of the battle, the Bannockburn Heritage Center is opened. Pilkington Jackson's statue of Robert the Bruce is erected. 1997, archaeological surveys by the Centre for Battlefield Archaeology at the University of Glasgow begin. They use metal detectors, ground-penetrating radar, soil analysis. They find arrowheads, horseshoe fragments, evidence of pike shafts. They confirm the likely battle site is slightly east of the traditional monument location, closer to the Carse. 2014, the 700th anniversary, more excavations. They find medieval pottery, weapon fragments, and bone fragments in multiple locations, matching the chronicler's descriptions of the burial pits